You're listening to the Steven Tauriello Show, building a platform of liberty for people in search of truth with a dash of hope and a life worth living. The Steven Tauriello Show. And now, here's Steven.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the show. As always, thank you for tuning in. So, Give, Send, Go tells Michigan Attorney General to pound sand and refuses to turn over the names of people donating to Trump electors. This is actually it's crazy how Democrats have normalized this targeting of Republicans by using the justice system. The Democrats have normalized a weaponized justice system. 20 years ago, you never even would have dreamed that a Democrat attorney general was strong-arming a private corporation to get a list of names of donors so that they can retaliate against him. This is crazy third world banana republic stuff. So I got an article here from Revolver News. The team of Banshee fishwives running the state of Michigan into the ground is once again on a hormonal warpath against all things Trump. As you likely know by now, Michigan lesbian Attorney General Dana Nessel has a singular focus, taking down anyone who voted for President Trump, even if they happen to be 80-year-old grandparents. Nessel is going after the Trump electors in Michigan who selflessly did all they could to stop the steal back in 2020. But she's not stopping there. Nessel is also targeting those who are donating money to the legal defense of these elderly electors. Fortunately, the good people at Give, Send, Go have told Dana Nessel and her Michigan Harpies to take a hike. So attorney Joshua Blanchard, a veteran criminal defense attorney in Michigan, commented on the peculiar nature of this request and its impact on the case. Quote, "I've never had the government demand to know who is paying my bill. One could fairly look at this from the outside and wonder if it's just trying to harass the folks who are defending the false electors." Give, Send, Go responded to news of the reports and claimed that they would not be complying with the request from Attorney General Nessel's office. "We are aware of the reports regarding the search warrant. At Give, Send, Go, we value the privacy of our givers and users and will protect it. Our founders have made it clear that we have not complied with these illegal search warrants, viewing them as overreaches and invasions of privacy. We are committed to challenging and resisting any such demands that compromise the privacy and trust of our community. We'll continue to uphold the values our platform is built upon and our mission to share the hope of Jesus through crowdfunding." This is incredible. This is exactly the type of stuff that the framers set in place. The Constitution and the Bill of Rights is not there for the easy times. The Constitution and the Bill of Rights is there for times just like this. They're there for the hard times. And so for Give, Send, Go to make a stand here and not just let the justice system run roughshod over their private corporation and their rights as a private corporation is incredible to me. It's very awesome and it gives me hope. So I find it just insane how we have 16 alternate slate of electors with the average age of 70 that are facing years in prison for signing a piece of paper. This is what's crazy to me. And they're being targeted because of Trump. Donald Trump has emotionally and psychologically broken these Democrats, these AGs and judges and district attorneys in Democrat states. We literally have Democrat judges, attorney generals that are weaponizing the justice system to target their political rivals. That is actually happening in this country. That should be a wake-up call for everybody. Because I said this months ago when this stuff first started happening, it is not going to stop until we are in a full-blown banana republic. And these people certainly won't stop until you fight fire with fire. They need to suffer real, tangible losses. That is it. An eye for an eye. That power is the only thing these people understand. And so having a Democrat attorney general target elderly people, out of the 16 people, there's not one of them that is under 55. and the oldest is 80 years old. And if convicted on the charges that they've charged him with, every single one of these people will essentially be sent to their death in prison. I mean, it is so shocking to me how people are not screaming from the rooftops like, whoa, whoa, this is absolutely way overboard. And now this Democrat Attorney General is upset that the American people are donating to these victims of a weaponized justice system, that she wants the list of all the donors. For what? What, is she going to go? Is she going to come after us too? Is she going to go after the donors? This is insane, folks. Insane. And so I was just scrolling through. I came across this story. This just came out about 9 hours ago. But you know what? Hats off to Give, Send, Go. And this is where Republicans and conservatives need to support these corporations that are standing up to this stuff. Because, you know, like the safe story, the Liberty Safe story we talked about a month ago, they just handed over the safe code immediately. The FBI had a warrant. They brought it over. Liberty Safe handed it over immediately. And that's what led to the arrest of that January 6er, who's now facing years in prison. I mean, it's just crazy what we're watching in this country, man. Like we're back in East Germany in the 1930s. I mean, it's so eerily similar to the stuff you see in totalitarian states with police powers. It's not even funny. It's actually quite terrifying. I've had a lot of people reaching out to me and asking me my thoughts on the Israel war with Hamas, and all I got to say, folks, is it is a small piece of a much, much bigger picture. I don't think the events of the last 2 weeks have been coincidental. I don't think any of the wars that have been started since Joe Biden took office have been started organically. I don't. Because you can't sit there and tell me that we had 4 years of no new wars with one administration, and the president of that administration just so happened to be the one and only outsider we've ever had in the White House. And so for 4 years, the military-industrial complex essentially had to take a break, probably suffering massive losses. And then the moment, 6 months within a Biden administration, we find ourselves in multiple conflicts in multiple regions with hundreds of billions of dollars going to these conflicts. Folks, it is not by mistake. It is not an accident. There is a much, much bigger picture to all of this. We just haven't seen it yet. But I guarantee you, there is one thing that I can guarantee you, is that all of it has to do with money and power. I can't sit here and say that I know everything about the Israeli-Palestine issue. I don't. I really don't. It's a complex issue that goes back thousands of years. But I will say this. I think the United States is obligated to support Israel. But we need to sit back and think this one through, or the military-industrial complex is going to incrementalize us into another world war. We are going to end up in another world war, or at the very least, another conflict in the Middle East. And as if these people have learned nothing the last 20 years from the last war we were in. But that's the thing. They haven't learned anything because it wasn't them sacrificing anything. This is the problem when you have a rogue government that constantly gets their country into foreign wars. None of these people have any sons and daughters going in to these far distant battlefields and dying. None of them. And so it's not surprising that they wouldn't learn a lesson from the last 20-year war that we were in. But the problem is that the military-industrial complex seems to always have the wheel of getting this country into foreign conflicts. Think about it. 6 months, folks, 6 months after 4 years of peace and prosperity from the Trump administration, and we find ourselves in all these different wars, in all these different conflicts, in multiple different regions. You have one that is getting ready to incrementalize itself into a major conflict with Middle Eastern countries. You have another one that is just in a stalemate where we've spent hundreds of billions of dollars holding up the Ukrainian government, and the American people's support for holding up that government is waning. And then the moment that the funding for Ukraine is in jeopardy and the American people lose interest, all of a sudden another war in the Middle East pops off? No, folks, no. It can't be. It is not on accident. None of this is organic. All of this is being played by bad actors and very powerful individuals in the military-industrial complex. And once you start to follow the money trail, things start to get really dark. And so my response to the people that are asking my opinion on the war in Israel, that's my opinion. My opinion is people need to stay vigilant and always remember that war brings in money, and we have a lot of people that benefit from war. And we have a lot of powerful individuals that love money. And so I'm not saying that, Netanyahu, I'm not saying Israel started any of this. All I'm saying is we are going to ask questions no matter where it leads us. We are going to follow the facts. And as of right now, the fact is that Israel was warned about this attack from Hamas and didn't respond. And not only did it not respond and allowed Hamas to enter into their country and, like a bunch of savages, pillage Israelis' homes, murdering families and children, but its response was anywhere between 3 to 8 hours. I don't know, folks. You have to ask these questions, regardless of where it leads you, and that's exactly what we're going to do here. But I'm telling you right now, my BS meter is going off because something's not right here. It's not adding up at all. None of it. And then all of a sudden, you have so many politicians, so many warmongering neocons that are so giddy to get into another Middle Eastern war that their finger is already on the button before the American people even realize what is even happening. We haven't got any answers to anything. And I'm sorry, but I don't think just going in somewhere, guns a-blazing, without a plan is not a good idea. And I think that Joe Biden, instead of going to Israel, should be doing a speech in front of the American people and asking them what they think. So, again, I'm not picking sides. I'm not saying anything. All I'm saying is that we know how these things work. We know that we went to war because the military-industrial complex and the Washington government swamp lied to the American people and said there was weapons of mass destruction. And we were there for 20 years. $8 trillion with $40 billion of that $8 trillion missing. Just gone. There's too much stuff that doesn't add up. But there's one thing I can guarantee you, none of this was organic. All of this is part of a bigger picture. And honestly, I think this administration is getting us into World War III. And I've been saying this for weeks. We are watching the beginning days of World War III. But you have to ask yourself, so why would anybody do that? Who benefits from war? Well, these people do. And so I got an article here I found pretty interesting. So Biden's chilling 60 Minutes response is a carbon copy of ancient Rome's demise.
Are the wars in Israel and Ukraine more than the United States can take on at the same time?
We're the United States of America, for God's sake. The most powerful nation in the history, not in the world, in the history of the world. The history of the world. We can take care of both of these and still maintain our overall international defense. We have the capacity to do this, and we have an obligation to. We are the essential nation, as to paraphrase the former Secretary of State. And if we don't, who does?
Trust us, this quote from Biden's 60 Minutes interview will come back to haunt the United States. The senile elder sounds confident, right? But let's not forget that being the most powerful nation in the history of the world isn't a free pass to solve every global conflict simultaneously. Power has limits, and spreading ourselves too thin is a disservice to our own strategic interests and global standing. Truthfully, this is precisely how Rome thought right before they fell. Sure, there's more than one reason Rome fell. It was a complex and long process, but one of the biggest reasons was their arrogance and spreading themselves too thin in battle. That is right. There was multiple reasons why Rome fell, but one of the biggest reasons was they were just essentially starting too much crap with everybody in the world, starting these conflicts. And then their military was so big that they couldn't even keep up with it financially. And so what happened is the military started depleting. And because of its depletion, it started losing. And then it became weak, and then Rome fell. I'm not saying that's the only reason, but it is one of the big major factors. In fact, we went through the 4 major reasons of the fall of Rome, and we meet every single one of them. Every single one of the reasons that Rome fell, the United States is experiencing right now. And we're sitting here trying to keep Kevin McCarthy in the House Speaker race. I mean, it's just incredible. So the same people that got us into this mess want to continue getting us into this mess. And when the American people are pretty much saying we've had enough, we want somebody else, we want to change the tune, these people have the audacity to sit there, no, we know what's best for you, and we're not going to go with Jim Jordan. We're going to stay with the guy that helped get us into this mess. It's truly incredible, man. I'm not saying that all this is to blame on Kevin McCarthy. What I'm saying is the Republican Party in general, these swamp creatures, okay, the rhinos. There is so much corruption in our nation's capital. It is enough to make one sick. And in fact, it's actually quite exhausting thinking about it. But you have 20 Republicans that refuse to vote for Jim Jordan. And in fact, some of them are voting for Kevin McCarthy, even though the American people have stood up and said, we don't want Kevin McCarthy. But they don't care. Why? Because there's all kinds of favors involved. There's probably deals involved. There's commingling. There's so much corruption and connections made that these people are invested into Kevin McCarthy. So by voting for Jim Jordan is not part of their plan. They have a plan for all of us. And I'm sorry, but the plan obviously doesn't benefit the American people. It benefits who? It benefits them. You don't get the $33 trillion in debt and the absolute decline in this country and want to continue going with that plan. I'm sorry. The American people are smart enough to know that we need to switch it up. We can't keep going down this route. This is unsustainable. But I'll tell you one of the main reasons why I think these people are not voting for Jim Jordan. Because they know with Jim Jordan, the funding and aid for Ukraine and Israel is at risk. And so we all know that these Congress people all benefit from war. All of them. Somehow, some way they benefit. I'm not saying just Congress people, but the entire damn swamp benefits from these wars. The entire damn thing. It's like the inner workings of our government, of the establishment, is supported by whether we go to war or not. Essentially, war brings in all the money for these frauds. And so they are incentivized to push that war button. They are incentivized to send more money to Ukraine, more money to Israel, because they benefit. They make money too. The Middle East war adds to surge in international arms sales. So just days after the assault by Hamas ignited a new war in the Middle East, shipments of American weapons began arriving in Israel. Smart bombs, ammunition, and interceptors for the Iron Dome missile defense system. When President Biden meets in Israel on Wednesday with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, more military aid is likely the topic. The conflict between Israel and Hamas is just the latest impetus behind a boom in international arms sales that is bolstering profits and weapons-making capacity among American suppliers. So there you go. So the military-industrial complex is fired up full steam ahead right now. And in fact, I actually got on the stock market and I pulled up some numbers. So as of right now, Northrop Grumman, which is like an aerospace defense company, is up 11%. Lockheed Martin is up 6%. Raytheon is up 2%. And General Dynamics is up 7%. These companies are the military-industrial complex. That's exactly what these companies do. And so when you see a spike increase in these stocks, you have a lot of people invested in these wars. So they essentially got the war machine brewing. I'm telling you, folks, these people love war because war brings them money. And so they're firing up the war machine and they're getting some momentum, baby. And they have no incentive to stop it anytime soon. This is why I am almost for sure we are going to be going to World War III. And the moment that troops are in Ukraine, which people can argue there is, but officially they haven't told us yet. So the moment we have boots in Ukraine and boots in Israel, we will officially be in a world war by definition. And so these things don't happen overnight. It's not like Joe Biden's going to come out and say, we are officially in World War III. No, these things happen over time. World War II was going on for years before we got involved. We got involved in 1940. The war ended in 1945. But there was all the countries were at war with one another before Pearl Harbor, which brought us into the war. So I started making some connections here. So the U.S. defense stocks surged nearly $30 billion after Hamas attack. So Wall Street has pumped money into the defense sector following the largest military escalation in years out of Israel, with the iShares U.S. Aerospace and Defense ETF up 6% since Friday, headlined by Lockheed Martin and Northrop Grumman's strongest stock gains in more than 3 years. That was from Forbes. And then right here is the connection. You guys really want to know why these people don't want to vote for Jim Jordan? These people cannot risk the American people not wanting to send more aid to Ukraine and aid to Israel. I think Israel is good. Israel has one of the most powerful militaries on the face of the planet. They have elite special operations that some people argue is better than ours. Trust me, they can take care of themselves. The United States, I'm sorry, may be overplaying their hand here. Because last I checked, I have not heard from Netanyahu saying that they need troops from the United States. But yet we have 25,000 troops being rallied in the Mediterranean to attack carrier groups. Like, the war machine is ready for this, folks. Like, they want to go to war. And don't ever think that these people wouldn't, blow up some of their own people just to get this war started. This is the type of stuff that we read about all the time in the history books, about how the United States conducted false flag operations. Hell, we just watched one happen on January 6th. And so false flag operations are absolutely possible in a situation like this because the war machine has incentive to go to war. These Congress people, politicians, the deep state bureaucracy, the military-industrial complex, they are all dedicated and committed to war because war brings them tons and tons of money, as you could see, as I just read to you from 2 different articles. And so I found one here, and this one is just the nail in the coffin. So Congress buys up war stocks ahead of Hamas attack on Israel. So as tensions escalate between Israel and the Hamas group, it has been revealed U.S. congressional leaders have been making some strategic investment moves into military-related stocks. For starters, defense company General Dynamics has witnessed a surge in purchases. This isn't entirely unexpected. Defense stocks often become attractive during times of geopolitical tension. Remember the Ukrainian war? We saw a similar trend then. However, what's even more intriguing is the sectoral split between Republicans and Democrats. A substantial number of Republicans have shown a keen interest in the energy sector. Heavyweights like ExxonMobil, Devon Energy, and Chevron are clearly the favorites. On the other side of the aisle, Democrats seem to be playing the long game, focusing on the cybersecurity sector with acquisitions in firms like Fortinet. So here is a tweet from Unusual Whales, which is like a stock tracker group, I guess, or organization. And so they tweeted, breaking, Congress has been buying war stocks. Many bought defense company GD, General Dynamics. Numerous Republicans bought heavy into oil plus energy companies with buys in XOM, Devon Energy, and Chevron. Democrats bought cybersecurity. These companies lobby Congress heavily.
According to Unusual Whales Politics, which keeps tabs on congressional trades, lawmakers on Capitol Hill have been purchasing war stocks. Both Republicans and Democrats bought General Dynamics stocks, and while Republicans bought more on the energy and oil front, Democrats poured their money into cybersecurity stocks.
The heavy wartime stock buying didn't just happen following the onset of the war in Ukraine, but there was a surge that hasn't receded. In August, Mississippi Congressman Michael Guest purchased about $15,000 worth of ExxonMobil stock, currently up and trading at $109 per Unusual Whales. Numerous politicians from both sides of the aisle are tailoring their investment portfolios based on these defense contractors and energy companies, all of which lobby Capitol Hill heavily. This is just another reason we really got to ban members of Congress from stock trading, or else how can we trust that their foreign policy decision-making, to the extent Congress exerts any influence or oversight over the foreign policy perspective to begin with, but they might be making decisions that are not in the best interest of U.S. foreign policy or the safety of Americans, but are lining their own pockets.
And so now there's no ignoring the fact that these companies lobby Congress with gusto. Lobbying in many ways serves as an avenue for corporations to communicate their perspective and interests into policymakers. The market is a reflection of geopolitical events, and those with the right foresight can harness its potential. As they say, it's about buying the rumor and selling the news. Congressional moves, while subject to scrutiny, can often offer a finger on the pulse of where the smart money may be heading. In the world of stocks, information is power, and the key is knowing how to interpret it. So there you go. Now you want to know why these people are so infatuated with war. It's because Congress people, and not just Congress people, like I said, it's not just Congress people. It's the entire damn system is incentivized to go to war. And so when you go onto the stock market and you see all these weapons contractor stocks skyrocketing, like I said, going up 11%, 7%, 6%, then you know that these people have incentive, which is exactly why I think Congress people should not be able to buy stocks. I'm sorry, but how can the American people have faith in their representative at having their best interest when it's clear and obvious that they have incentives to do the opposite? You know what I mean? So, like, for instance, perfect example, like the American people overwhelmingly do not want to go to war in the Middle East. We just don't. The American people overwhelmingly do not support war. So how can these people trust that their representative is doing all that they can to keep the American people out of war when that elected representative has been completely invested into war by buying weapon stocks? You can't. And so this is the problem with Congress people buying and sharing stocks. It's unacceptable. The biggest example is Nancy Pelosi. These people are making millions and millions of dollars. And I'm sorry, but the American people are sinking out here. The American people aren't sinking, we're drowning. And these people are in here making millions of dollars in stocks because they could see war on the horizon. Or hell, maybe the military-industrial complex is starting the wars. You know, these people, when they leave office, people like Mike Pence, Chris Christie, Alexander Vindman, every single one of these bureaucrats and elected officials in Congress, when they don't have a job anymore working for the government, they all go to the private sector. Like, it's like a revolving door. And the reason why they do that is because A, they have security clearance, and B, they are a major benefit to companies like Raytheon and Lockheed Martin and Boeing because of their connections inside government. The military-industrial complex and our government are essentially one entity now. The American people do not have control over this government. This government is doing their own thing, their own way. They have created their own little club, and nobody's invited. If you don't have anything to benefit the military-industrial complex and the government, they don't want you in there. They don't want you in the club. And that is exactly why Donald Trump is hated so much by all these people. And I'm sorry, folks, but the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And that is exactly why I support Donald Trump more and more and more. Because the more billionaires that come out against Donald Trump by donating to Youngkin or Ron DeSantis, the more that just secures my vote for Donald Trump. Because I don't want the president bought and paid for. We all know that Joe Biden's corrupt. We all know Joe Biden and his family have gotten millions of dollars from people like China, from Romania, Ukraine. Everybody knows that the Bidens are corrupt. And, frankly, this whole war situation may just be a massive cover-up of all the Biden corruption and the impeachments. You don't know. Would it surprise anybody if Democrats somehow, some way started this conflict between Israel and Hamas just so that it would make Joe Biden look better, or just so that it would get Joe Biden across the finish line? This is how desperate these people are. These people are so desperate that they would start a world war to prevent Donald Trump from being president. And I'm not even joking when I say that. In all honesty, you have to think about how close we are to an election. This exact time in the last election is when COVID happened. A year and a few months heading into the election. And how did they use the COVID? How did they use the pandemic? Well, they used it to get Joe Biden across the finish line. So how do you think they're going to use this war? They're going to use it to get Joe Biden across the finish line. However, I don't think it's going to work because of alternative media outlets. And number two, everything Joe Biden touches is a freaking disaster. Why anybody would want Joe Biden anywhere near this situation in the Middle East is way beyond my comprehension. I can't even comprehend why anybody would want that, especially when we know for a fact that everything this guy has touched has turned into garbage, has gotten worse. And you have Robert Gates, Obama's former Secretary of Defense, coming out saying Joe Biden's been wrong on every single foreign policy his entire career. And yet we want him to be commander-in-chief in probably the beginning days of World War III, where some of the most important decisions have to be made by the commander-in-chief, the commander of our armed forces. And we have Joe Biden over there, a guy that cannot even walk upstairs, a guy that shuffles around on a stage, a guy that looks like he needs to be in a nursing home. I'm sorry, folks, none of this is making sense. This is a very, very bad idea. And if the United States is not careful in this situation, we are going to be brought into a major, major war in the Middle East, in Europe, everywhere. So to answer the question for the people that have been asking me how I feel about the war in Israel, that's how I feel. This is just a small piece to a much bigger picture. And it hurts me to say that this administration, the Joe Biden administration, has no clue what it's doing. And Joe Biden is the old man that lets all the teenagers party at his house and take advantage of him while all the teenagers are making fun of him behind his back. Joe Biden is asleep at the wheel. Joe Biden has no idea what he's doing. This is exactly why he is the perfect candidate for Democrats. They are using Joe Biden like a tool. They are. Joe Biden has no idea what he's doing here. The guy has dementia. Now, I'm not saying that Joe Biden's not evil and cunning. He's certainly those things, but smart is not one of them. I know it's hard to say that because the guy managed to do nothing his entire career and become president. But that is because Joe Biden is so cunning. That is because Joe Biden is such a fraud. Not because he's smart, not because he's capable, not because he's competent, but because he is very, very corrupt. That's why. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, that's all. We're going to keep this show short. I'm going to be working on another show right after this because I want to dive into Donald Trump's tax cuts. Yes, this is a huge talking point by the Democrats, and I want to put this talking point to rest, and that's exactly what we're going to do on the next show. Donald Trump's tax cuts did not benefit just the rich, okay? Donald Trump's tax cuts were not just for the billionaires. I'm sorry, it's not true. And I'm going to prove it on the next episode. So make sure you tune into next episode because that's what we're going to talk about. And we'll probably talk about the Jim Jordan battle, the House Speaker battle. Jim Jordan himself said he feels confident he's going to get the votes the next time around. So we'll see. But I have already put out a audio clip. You can find it on TikTok or any social media platform where I give out the phone number and I give out every single name of the Republicans that are not voting for Jim Jordan. And if you come across that audio clip, whether it's on TikTok or Facebook, share it. Share it with your friends. And also, if you listen to that audio and your state representative is on that list, you need to call them. The number is 202-224-3121. Call your representative. We must get Jim Jordan as Speaker. I'm not saying he's the best. He's going to solve all the problems. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm telling you one thing right now. The more Democrats hate him, the more we should love him. The more the system is out to get Jim Jordan, the more we should support Jim Jordan. That's all I'm saying. Jim Jordan is certainly going to be better than Kevin McCarthy. Trust me, removing Kevin McCarthy as Speaker was not part of their plan. These people have a plan, and they control the levers of power in this government way more than the American people do. The American people no longer have control of this government. This government has been rogue. It has combined forces with the military-industrial complex and all the bureaucrats in the swamp, and it is no longer the people's government, and the people no longer have oversight of that government. And I'm sorry, but Kevin McCarthy was no different than Mitch McConnell. Kevin McCarthy was no different than any other rhino. I can't call Kevin McCarthy a rhino because I don't know that. But based off the wins, based off the results that he gave the Republicans for the first 10 months, I don't know. Seems to me like he's a swamp creature. And so I think the American people would be a lot better off with Jim Jordan. So again, if your state representative is on that list, call them. The number's 202-224-3121, and we can get our country back. So other than that, I'm going to be talking to you guys here in a little bit. If you have any questions, make sure you reach out to me, StevenTaurielloShow@gmail.com. I'm going to leave all these research articles in my podcast description. As always, make sure you read them. And listen, like I said, the further you follow the money down the money trail, the darker things get. And I'm going to leave that trail in my podcast description so you guys can go down that trail if you want and just get yourself up to date with how the inner workings of the military-industrial complex works. Because informed people make the best decisions. Uninformed people make bad decisions. And it's time the American people take the wheel back of this country before we don't have a country left. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, as always, thank you for tuning in. I want you guys to have a good day. Have a great week. God bless you. God bless America. You guys have a good day. Bye-bye.